Hello and welcome to Aquarium Dilemmas. I'm your host, ScienceGal Aquatics. I'm Kerri, and this is my co-host,
Jesse, and welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you for tuning into another wonderful episode.
Yes, it's fun like it is every week to have you here listening with us. So thank you again.
Yeah, this one's going to be a little deeper dive into something that's near and dear to ScienceGal, Kerri's
kind
heart.
of a part 2 from last week. So go back if you haven't listened to last week's episode. But this week I wanted to talk about guppy breeding. I love guppies. You've heard me say it 1,000 times already, but it's definitely the first fish that I took care of all by myself. It's the first fish that I bred. It's the first one that I've just have that special attachment to is guppies. And there's a few different ways that I've bred them through the years and how I even breed them now. So it's something I wanted to talk about. So hopefully you pick up some pointers this week. And if you haven't, go get you some guppies.
Yeah, and we'll put a little, and this could be also helpful for people that get guppies and don't expect kind of a fry. And so this will be kind of a little,
it's an easy one to breed. So if you don't want babies,
this will be kind of a do or don't deal on that of the breeding. And the only way you can 100% guarantee that you're not going to get babies, 100% guarantee it, is only have all males.
Yes, I would recommend if you don't want to have a lot of babies in your tank or have to know with what you're going to do with the babies in the future, I would recommend definitely having an all guppies, just an all male guppy tank, or have all males in your community tank. But guppies are my favorite. I highly recommend them. They're good for all experience levels. And if someone asks me what I think you should get, it will probably be guppies. So let's talk about how to breed them.
Well, where do you want to start? I know where I will start is if you have a female or you get a female from a store or anywhere, there's a very high probability she's already pregnant.
Well, I kind of want to take it step back a little bit, and we'll pick up definitely right there. But how do you even know if you have a female or a male?
Generally, the males are generally a lot more colorful and the females are not. But anymore that's not.
So they're sexually dimorphic. So they're definitely a fish that you can typically look at and see which one's male or females. Like you said, the males typically have the most color. They have the pretty fins. They're sometimes, I think, a little skinnier, but they're the eye-catching ones, where more and more I think you see more colorful females. So it's not something that you should always rely on, because I promise you there's like little sneaker ones that look like females for a long time, and then all of a sudden you're like, no, that's a male actually. And it's like, I thought you were a female for a while. But going beyond that, I would say the females, if you look towards the belly, there's going to be some kind of gravid spot if they're pregnant in some mini day. Like whether they're fully pregnant, it's going to be a little darker, a little bigger, a little more pronounced. If they're newly pregnant, it starts to darken, but it's just a darkened spot kind of in the belly region above their anal fin. And then the females, their anal fin's more triangular, whereas the males have a gonopodium. It's more of a stick-like fin that kind of moves from side to side. So if you don't know the difference between if you have a male or female, that's a quick way to identify.
Yeah. And I would say checking out the fins, as far as that's more of your almost 100% method.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a definitely quick glance for if I'm just walking up to a tank. It's pretty easily noticed if the males, they're going to be more colorful. Their fins are a little larger. The females are more grayish. I think their body's a little bigger, but you definitely see more and more pretty females that have really pretty fins too. So it's not a 100%. And like I said, I've had females that I thought were females for a long time that I was like, man, this is a really pretty female. And then all of a sudden I'm like, they get a little bit more mature and you're like, that was a total male this whole time. And then, so it was a little bit more muted down male, but it wasn't as vibrant as the rest. And then I feel like there's some like sneaker males in there that just take a little bit longer to mature. So it's definitely easier in guppies over most fish to just walk up and be like, that's a male and a female, but it's not, you can't 100% all the time rely on just colors. I would stick more to looking at their bottom anal fin to see if it's a triangle shape or a more of a stick shape.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense to me. I don't delve into it as hard as you do.
Yeah, the females, their bodies typically are the ones that are more grayish. Like I said, there's the point, and I probably should know this, but once you start talking about it, but there's the section from their body to their tail. The males to me are a little skinnier. The females, their bodies are a little bit wider, but the females in that back belly region above their anal fin, if they're anywhere along the way being pregnant, that's going to be darkened and enlarged, but that gravid spot, the females have just a small little darkened spot where the males don't have that.
Okay. All right. Well,
and then if you have a fully pregnant female and it's boxed up, and we'll probably talk about this again, you can see if it's a more translucent type coloration guppy, you can see those fry and they're so cute, all those little eyeballs, but that's jumping to, we'll get to that. But yeah. What else? I guess going next from like just anatomy, that's kind of it to me, that was really important, is just knowing what you have, if it's a male or female. And then if you're wanting to breed, like I've said in other podcasts before, I've bred them in a little colder water. I've bred them outside. I've bred them in the fish room. I've bred them with plastic decor, gravel, planted tanks, heated tanks, room temperature tanks. And I recommend the smallest tank for if you have intentions of breeding going into it. Don't try, if you can, to not get anything smaller than a 20-gallon and have it planted as you can get it. In the beginning, it takes a while to get a tank to be fully planted, but the more live plants you have, and give them at least a 10-gallon, can you breed guppies? Yes. A 5-gallon, can you breed guppies? Yes. Can you breed guppies in 68 degrees? Yes. Can you breed guppies in a heated 80 degrees or outside? 100% you can breed guppies. But for me, I feel like the largest yield when it comes to fry is at least a 20-gallon long, and it's planted.
Oh, I'm going to agree with you there on the size of the tank for sure. And I'm sure coming up, you're going to explain why you keep your 20s planted instead of just a 20 long with just sand or gravel in the bottom or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes to breeding guppies, I think we said this in the last guppy episode, but when it comes to substrate and guppies, I feel like depending on the color of guppies you choose, I know with my dark blue guppies that I've had in the past, a darker substrate made their color really richen up. And so I put more thought into my substrate when it comes to making my plants happy versus the guppies, because the guppies can breed. But I know, so if you have a certain color of guppies, sometimes, well, I won't say sometimes, and all of the times in my experience with the guppies that I've kept, when it comes to the guppies I've kept, the substrate, it doesn't help them breed, but it does kind of influence the coloration, how rich it is. if you have some lighter guppies and you put them against certain substrates, it can kind of richen. I know I like darker guppies. I tend to go with the darker guppies, so I like them with darker substrates and a darker background. But when it comes to substrate, I put more emphasis on just keeping my plants happy. But because I have happy plants, I won't say they're 100% perfectly green. I'm still learning, but they're more planted than they've ever been. And it gives the fry a place to hide. It gives the females a place to just kind of get a rest from the males. They have a place to kind of relax, just kind of hanging out in all the plants. So there's a lot of benefits for just making your tank heavily planted in the substrate. I think it does influence the color to a certain, like a small extent, but I like sand, gravel, and some fluval stratum for me personally. But again, the substrate goes more into my plants. So it's whatever plants you wish to keep. But for guppy breeding, I have really good luck with Vallisneria. It grows in relatively quick. It gives them a lot of places to hide. And once they get a little bit of growth to the fry, they kind of, the first little bit, they hang out at the bottom, then they come out. And I like guppy grass. Guppy grass, I mean, it's guppy grass given the name, but because it does grow pretty good in my water and I can get a pretty good bundle of it floating at the top, those guppy fry have a lot of places to hide like just in all that guppy grass. So having live plants really does give them a lot of places to hide. The females get a place to rest, and it's just really beneficial because even the little bit of algae that grows on it gives them, they pick on that. So it gives them,
it gives something for the fry. In my opinion, it gives something for the fry to pick on too.
Yeah.
Because we can't see everything in that water column that's microscopic that is in that tank. And I feel that the live plants can help provide some of that.
Yeah, because those fry are so tiny. They're really tiny. They're live bears, so they're little clones, basically little clones of their parents. They come out, you don't have to worry about eggs or anything like that. And that's the reason they're so easy to breed, I think, because I just, in my opinion, think live bears are easier to breed than the egg scatters that I've tried in the past. But since they are so small, they need really small food. And I do feed them. We'll just go into food. They can eat guppy fry once you get them. They can eat anything their parents can eat. I just crush it up in my fingertips as small as I can get it. But having that little bit of algae on those plants gives them something that's super, sometimes you can barely even see it, but it's there. And you can see them kind of nibbling on it here and there. So I think it just helps eat with their diet too. Just having even just a little bit of algae on the plants just to have something for them to nibble on. But going into diet, I do have the Aquarium Co-op's fry food. I really like that. And the first bites, I believe off the top of my head, it's Akari, but I could be wrong. But it's the first bites. I really like that if I want something specific for the new guppy fry. But if you don't have anything and you can't go out of your way to go buy something, you can use flakes or granules or whatever you choose to feed. Just make sure it's
just crush it up
finer. And kind of if you want to go in one specific spot, kind of train them to go in one spot, that's fine. But I kind of go all over to make sure it kind of goes everywhere so everything gets fed as evenly and they have access to food as best I can get it.
Well, I think so far you've got some really good points going on here. 20 long, obviously. I agree 100% in my opinion. Perfect breeder size tank for guppies.
It's my favorite.
If you're going to get into breeding guppies, or you get a 20 long and you already have a trio in there, they're going to have babies. So the perfect size tank, obviously.
Yeah.
And moving on with that, plant the tank, give everybody a place to hide and rest. And the breeding, usually you keep your tanks about 4?
In the fish room, I try to keep it about, there's a magical number between like 74, 76 to 78 when it comes to breeding guppies. That's my favorite. But like I've said, you can get guppies typically are one of the easiest ones you can breed, and they do well in all kinds of different parameters. But there's something around that 74, 76 to 78 degrees Fahrenheit that it works well for the fry and the parents. They both do well for in my fish room. And if you keep your house that temperature and you don't heat the tank, but it doesn't get any lower than that, then that your guppies are probably more than likely going to breed. And the females, they have the ability to hold sperm. So if at any time you put a female in with a male and she's mature and can breed and she's had access to a male, chances are she's at least going to be fertile. For now, they say that guppies have the ability to drop fry every 30 days, and that's probably true. I've had guppies. I wouldn't say that they produced fry every 30 days right on the dot, but I've had some females that drop fry more often than others. But in my fish room, because it's generally more on the stress-free side, there's not really a rush for them to reproduce. They don't have any threat. And it seems like when I have the more peaceful, there's just guppies in there. If there's anything else in there, it might be some neocaridina shrimp. There's really no threat. It does take longer for them to drop their fry. And if they have too much stress, they're in a community tank and you might have an aggressive fish or whatever reason they feel stressed, they have the ability to absorb all them fry and they won't drop any. So you want to keep it as stress-free as possible. But from my experience, when it comes to guppy breeding, I've learned that the more peaceful, the more relaxed I try to make them, they hold on, they don't drop as often.
Yes.
They don't necessarily have as many, but the babies they do have are a little, to my eye, they look a little bigger and they have a little less. Where in the years past, when I've done experiments for college, when it comes to guppies, I realized that if I did keep them in a community aspect or I stressed them a little bit more, they had their fry more often. They had more fry when they do drop, but they're smaller, they're a little weaker. So that what you choose to keep them, their tank mates, their environment does influence how big, how often.
It dictates their fry management as far as for the species. If they're stressed a little bit, then they're going to drop more fry. The fry are going to be smaller, not necessarily as healthy. And if they're not as stressed and they're in a peaceful environment, they're not going to feel that urge to want to give off those babies and keep their.
That's how it was explained to me in ecology class too, was in a nature setting. The reason that they're small and they have a lot of babies at a time is because they're lower down on the food web. So not all of them are expected to make it to adulthood, because half of them are probably going to get eaten.
Some sort of predation.
Yes. And what else? What did I learn? There's something else, but I just lost my train of thought. Oh, goodness.
Well, whenever they're in the wild, I mean, it makes sense. And they're in the wild.
Oh, yeah. Keep going.
They're in a stressful environment. So yes, I would assume close to every 30 days, they're going to be having babies, because that might be the female's last day on Earth, basically. Well, the easiest way to explain it.
Yeah, you jogged my memory. Thank you. But in ecology class, and this is when I had this I was supposed to be paying attention to what we were learning, but I was thinking about guppies and my fish back home. But in nature, the males are more colorful. And granted, the male guppies that you see in nature are more they're more inler. They're not the fancy guppies you see in the fish room, but the males in nature still have more color, and it takes more energy to produce eggs over the sperm. So if one of them is gonna, I hate to say it, but not disposable, but it's the male. So that's the reason they're more colorful, to draw the eye to them so they get eaten, because the females are born with, it takes more energy to produce an egg than sperm.
Yes.
And so the females are a little bit more duller in color, but they're lower on the food web, so they have a lot more color. But because there is more of a threat around them in the creek or the river or whatever you find them in, they do have that urge to mate constantly. And there's more of like the sneak attack. I noticed 2 different types of mating styles, but you get more of that sneak from the males, where that's kind of there's no courtship, there's no swimming together, there's none of that. It's just they need to reproduce, they need to get as many guppies in the water as possible, and they're constantly mating and having fry because there's that urge to reproduce. So they have a lot
urge to
more,
keep the species alive.
They have a lot more babies. They're not always the healthiest. And like the results I have in my experiment in the past, those stressed ones, male, female, both, they were a little less colorful. Even the males they were still more colorful, but they were duller in color. They had babies a lot more often. They had twice as many babies, but they were tiny, tiny little things. Whereas the stress-free tanks, their coloration, even in the females, because I even turned the lights off like more often. It was just keep them super stress-free. And the males were beautiful. The females had a little bit more color than even normal. And their babies were healthy. You could just look at them. They were healthier. They were larger. And they got color quicker in the fry. So it was just something I kind of expected a little bit, because we had talked about that in class, but it was really interesting to just see it, to be like, yeah, you want to try to keep it as stress-free as possible, but at the same time, don't be shocked if your females just hold on to those. If you get fry every 60 to 90 days versus every 31 days on the dot, just don't be surprised.
Yeah.
But you don't want it to be on the other end so stressed out with a lot of nippy tank mates that all your babies get eaten. Yeah, they're dropping fry all the time, but they're so stressed out that they're absorbing fry, or they're just constantly getting
you're feeding the other fish in your tank. Yeah. Well, all those are really good points. And the fact that guppies I'm going to go with probably the most readily bred in the hobby. Most of the time you're not,
I just assume you're not going to get to breed.
Well, and you're not going to get wild caught guppies. I mean, you're just not. You
can order them. You can find them. They're just really expensive. They're an in-class inler, I believe, is more of like the wild caught guppy, but they're not fancy guppies with the long blue, like mosaic Dumbo guppies.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They have been bred in this hobby so long. They're so much fun to breed and so easy to breed that you got double swords, high fin swords.
Yeah, there's all kinds, and they're beautiful too.
The tail types and all that. That'll have to be a whole nother episode.
I still don't know how I feel about the males that the fins are so big that they just have trouble swimming. There's a point where I'm like, yeah, they're pretty, but they can't physically swim. But I don't own any of those anyway. But I guess going back kind of a little bit more on topic when it comes to the mating like the styles that I noticed when I was doing that experiment in school, there is a sneak attack. It was definitely just sneak attack, sneak. The males would just go up, mate, and go. And then on the stress-free tanks, they would almost, it looked like they were kind of courting. But they would swim together. They would kind of go up and down the tank glass together. The males would kind of stretch out their fins a little bit. And it was I wouldn't say a dance, but for a lack of a better term, a dance together. They took their time and they were definitely swimming with each other. What one would do, the other would do. Whereas the stress tanks, when they were just sneaking, it didn't matter if the female was what she was doing, the male would swim up from behind, from below, and you could see the gonopodium. It goes from side to side, and they would just swim up next to her and try to touch her the triangle fin, and just go, and because they were so stressed that they just wanted to reproduce and go on. So there is no swimming together. There is no flaring of the fins. There is none of that. It was constant. And when it comes to talking about guppies, you hear about the males just being relentless because they are prolific breeders. They breed all the time. And when you want to turn the lights off, you want to have a lot of plants to kind of give the female time to get away. Because, I mean, even in the stress-free tanks, it might have been more of a courtship, more swimming along, but it was constantly swimming with her. So that's the reason having a heavily planted tank is really important, because and turning the lights off is really important, because it gives, in my experience from what I've seen, it gives her time to kind of get away from that. And you want to have more females than males. You want to have at least 2 females to every male, just because you don't want to have just one female that's constantly, you want to give her a break.
Well, yeah, she'll be constantly bothered. So, and one male can, I think even the 2 females to 1 male, if you're breeding in a tank, or there's going to be breeding going on in that tank, which is going to happen if you got males and female guppies, there's no doubt about it. There's no question. You can go so far as to almost double that amount just to take the stress off the females, because the males are still going to chase.
Yeah.
You can have 2 males to 6 to 8 females, and they're still going to chase all the time.
I think starting off, if you want to breed and your intentions is to get a really good guppy line and then breed them, I really think 2 females and a male is really good. Having a good trio, and then keeping that trio in a 20 long, and then maybe getting another trio in case something happens, and starting it in another 20 long is a really good idea. Because I won't say in every case, but there's been cases in the past when I've breeded guppies, when I bred guppies, that I would do like 2 females, 3 females, and 2 males. And every once in a while, like I said, it's not all the time, but every once in a while, it seemed like one of those male guppies was either, I don't know if it was too young, or it just, I don't know, but it would just get out competed and wouldn't be allowed to breed. It would always get kind of chased off. And because it wouldn't get to me, because it wouldn't be allowed to mate, it would always stop eating, and I would lose that weaker male. And again, it's not all the time. And this is the reason why I now, if I'm going to breed a line, I'll get 2 trios and start 2 different tanks. One, because I've learned to always get a backup, because it seems like, again, not all the time, but it's just those stories. You always lose like your male or something, but I get 2 trios and start 2 different tanks, because it just seems like you always have that one time. And again, I don't know if it's because it was a juvenile or if it's just the color rate. It just, the females didn't find it attractive, but because that one dominant male would kind of constantly, it would always try to mate, but it would just always chase that other male off. Then it just wouldn't eat, and then I would lose it. It would just kind of get puny, and then I would lose it.
Well, that makes sense. And going with all the points you've got up to this this part right now, we got our 20 long, we got our trio, we got it planted, and we're keeping about 74. that to me is all the right things. I mean,
Yeah.
you can keep it in a higher temperature or you can keep it in a lower temperature. The only thing I would add to that is if you keep it at a higher temperature, you're raising that fish's metabolism and your fish are not going to live as long.
Yeah, it definitely influence it makes them reach maturity a little faster too. But if you have the extra time to just there's no need to rush it if you don't have to. And I really think keeping it around that 78-degree mark, it just works best for me. So that's my advice. But I guess the last kind of thing, and this is probably going to be the longest thing, is breeder box or no breeder box.
Well, I was going to say it's not even going to be so much that is besides breeder box, no breeder box. It's going to be, do you take the male out? Do you take the female out? Do you leave
There's always something
do you
we
leave them all
out,
together?
I know for me now, personally, I like my tanks again for the 100th time. I like them heavily planted. I like for them to drop their fry in the tank and go from there. If I want to specifically breed a certain female and a certain male, then I'll start a new tank and go from there. But I've tried breeder boxes of all different kinds and I don't hate them. I don't. If you have a I don't know, a male or a female that's I don't have a lot of aggression when it comes to guppies eating their babies. You do have certain lines that are more fry friendly than others, but I haven't kept one in all the years that I'm like, man, I lose all my fry because that male or female just eats them all. I don't have a lot of, do I lose a few here and there? Sure. But during my experiment when I was in college, I definitely used breeder boxes because I wanted to keep everything very separated because I needed to keep track of everything. But to me personally, I like a heavily planted tank because I like for the females to drop the fry in the tank. But if you do want to use breeder boxes, again, because I don't hate them, I had better luck when I did choose to use them to put the female in there, give her a couple of days after she dropped her fry, and then move her back into her tank. Give her a couple of days before she goes back in with the male. And then you're going to have to spot clean them because they do get dirty after about a few days. Really, you need to get like a turkey baster or something that you can spot clean, because even being fry, when you have 50 fry in there, my biggest issue with them is just how dirty they get so quickly. But they do work as long as you spot clean them. If you want to try to keep them super organized, you want to keep them, if you have plans to line breed them, if you want to, for whatever reason, if you need to separate them out, breeder boxes are a good way to go. And I know there's some out there that's a little bit more helpful when it comes to cleaning, but I don't have anything against them. I just prefer, I have better luck just letting her drop her fry in the tank. And
do you remove the male? Don't remove the male? What's your thoughts on that?
The fine. I don't mess. Usually, even when I was moving them around, I didn't mess with the males. I moved the females. I know that I did. There was a small period in time that when I was building my fish room and we were getting more and more tanks, when I knew I had a guppy that was going to drop soon, you could start to see her getting more and more boxy. I would just set up a new tank. I just set out a grow out tank. And then I would get that as quickly as cycled as I could. I'd take media from whatever tank she was currently in to the tank that I wanted her to go in. And then I would let her drop her fry in there, give her a couple of days, and then move her back to her original tank. Because when you do move fry, especially when that first week, guppies are hardy, but when they're babies and they're fresh fry, they're still pretty fragile. And I know when I lost the most fry was when I was moving she would drop her fry and then I would move the fry out for whatever reason. And that's when I lost them. So if you do choose to move the female, or if you want her to drop her fry in something else, move the female into whatever you want the fry to be in, let her be in there and then move her back. The male I don't really mess with. I don't really mess with the male. But
well, that's all really good advice. That's why I posed that question to you. And I see it that way as well. It is easier to know when your female's pregnant and move her. And I agree. Then the fry are born and the other, or they're already alive and swimming. But yes, they're hatched out into the other tank and ready to go in those water parameters that are almost identical to the tank that their mother was in.
Yeah, I tried to just match up the parameters, and I have a lot of tanks, but I keep them, the majority that they're heavily planted. They're all around the same temperature. If they're off, they're a degree off here and there. And so I would just set up the tank, and I did have the best results, but I wouldn't use anything below a 10-gallon tank. And when I first started that experiment in college, and those videos are pretty bad, but if you want to watch them, they're the first videos on the ScienceGal Aquatics channel on YouTube. They're at the very bottom. But the very first time I got fry, when I was trying to do this my first way, I moved the female into like little 1 gallon. They're sold as like beta tanks at the grocery store. So they're like little 1 gallon rectangle. And I lost all of the fry. So I didn't do that more than once because it was bad. So if you do want to grow out your fry in a tank of their own, just have a grow out tank. Move that female, get the tank set up, move the female in there, let her drop, give her a couple of days, then move her into her original tank. And that way worked really good. I leave her in the tank she's in now because it's heavily planted. They're larger tanks. One of them's a 55-gallon tank, and it's heavily planted. And I want that to have like a whole bunch of guppies in there. And they're not line bred. It's just as they say, mutt guppy community tank. I have plans for the future. If you want to follow us on the YouTube channel, and I'm sure we'll talk about it 100 times on here too, to be specific more about line breeding and how to choose the female and the male. Like I've learned a couple things here and there, so stay updated for that. But yeah, I just don't have any desire to use breeder boxes anymore, but I don't want to say I hate them.
Well, and I think honestly the predation of the fry in a heavily planted tank is almost like Mother Nature. It's the great equalizer of it. It's just weeding out the absolute weakest that is in that group or line, however you want to talk about it. And we have had great success leaving the male, female, and all the fry in tanks. I think our biggest asset is what we've talked about already, is the size of the tanks and the planting of the tanks.
Yeah.
So, and even your overgrown algae growth, which is another thing. If you are getting into breeding, if you've ever seen any sort of breeding operation, they are not the cutest tanks.
Yeah, the tanks, I try to keep them. I see these beautiful aquascape tanks and I try, but honestly, when it comes to breeding, a little bit of, they just don't look all that pretty, but they breed so well having some algae in there, and they're not beautifully scaped, but they're very heavily planted and they do really good. But when it comes, I'm trying to think back over the years when I did use breeder boxes. I was going to say, like, when it comes to predation and losing guppy fry, you're naturally, it seems like for every drop of fry that I've gotten, you're naturally going to lose a couple that just because they didn't make it. It seems like when I did use breeder boxes, because they were in a very confined area, I didn't necessarily see females like munching on fry, but I seen her when the fry would come up in the breeder box, she would kind of chase them a little bit more because a breeder box is a really small area. Whereas in the 55 gallon and the 20 longs that I have guppy fry in with their parents, you might see them every once in a while kind of chase after one, but you don't see it like I did when I had them in the breeder boxes during that experiment. But the only thing they worked for the reason they worked. I just didn't like it because they did get dirty, but there's ways to spot clean that. So, and I know some people really like it, but I just know for me personally now, I just let them breed and keep them in the tank in which they're bred in, and just naturally you're going to lose a couple that just are kind of weaker. But like you said, it's kind of the survival of the fittest. For every drop, I probably get a handful, because I don't get massive amounts of fry at a time either, because I don't have community tanks of guppies. They're just a community of guppies. So they don't drop fry every 30 days. I might get fry every 30 days. Yes, but it's from different females.
Yes, correct.
But just trying to think. It just seems like after we record the episode, there's something I'm like, oh yeah, I should have said that. But I know I get a lot of questions on the channel about if you should use breeder boxes or not. And I just wanted to, I don't know if I have anything else to talk about when it comes to breeder boxes.
I feel that the breeder box is not necessary unless
you want to use it.
Unless you want to use it, or you're going to be doing either an experiment or you're like doing some serious type line breeding of some sort.
Yeah.
But still, yet then you have to let them grow up a little bit. They haven't even reached maturity enough for you to be able to sex them to know what you need to move or not move.
Yeah.
So in that sense, you can almost negate the breeder box.
Yeah.
If all your other parameters are correct for what you're wanting to do, I feel like you don't have to have it.
No, it's one of those things that you don't have to have. Most things in this hobby, when it comes to gadgets, you 100% do not need it. But is it fun to have? Yeah. And there's a time that I wanted to try breeder. There's things that are worth trying. And if it works well for whatever you're using, keep using it. It's just the only drawback that I saw was they got a little dirty, and I just do better with them not separating and going through all that. But at the same time, I am going to start playing with line breeding. And if you want to line breed a specific guppy, then separating them out is a little bit more important. So it's just how far you want to take it. The 55-gallon heavily planted mutt guppy tank that's just a community of all different types of guppies, I don't separate them out. I really like seeing what combinations I get. But if I have one like just beautiful female that develops like I have now, then I'll separate her out, put her in another tank like she's in now, and the babies that she has in the future, then I'll separate them out into another tank. But I guess that's the next thing I guess we could talk about is the stages, what to look for. Like when you have a pregnant guppy, in my head, it's like 2-3 different stages to look for. When they're first newly pregnant, like we'll just use this super pretty female guppy I have now. I just moved her in a tank. I noticed I had an abnormally pretty one, so I picked out a male, and it's just, like I said earlier, it's one male and one female, and he hounds her a lot. He does. He's very active when it comes to mating. but I don't have another abnormally pretty female right now. If I did, it would be in there. But whenever they have babies, that's when I'll start separating them out. But when it comes to stages, that first stage, like right now, she's not very pregnant. She's got a darkened gravid spot. That's why I'm hoping she is pregnant, and I'm staring at her right now. So staring and talking is hard. But that first stage, I would say, when it comes to identifying guppy pregnancy, is that they're going to look normal. They're not going to look enlarged. It's just that gravid spot's going to start to grow and enlarge. And that kind of goes into the second stage too. They're still going to look a little skinny. They're still going to look normal compared to a pregnant guppy. But that gravid spot's just going to keep growing and keep enlarging. And they're going to be pregnant for, like they say, the average is 30 days. But in my case, in my fish room, in other cases, in your fish room, it might be 60 days. They might hold on to them. They say, and they do have the ability to drop fry every 30 days, but it's just an average. So that gravid spot's going to get darker, and they're going to slowly get a little bit, they're going to look bloated.
So there's not, what you're saying is, that's kind of the dilemma here on what we're talking is, there's not really a magical number.
There's not a number. They say, you read articles, and when I say they, it's just the collective, and they're pregnant for about 30 days. But if they don't have any stress, then don't be alarmed. There's nothing wrong if they don't drop their fry to day 40 or day 32, or it's a couple months and they just look super bloated. Don't be alarmed. It's an average. It's an average of 30 days.
Well, and
you can get an average of 1 to like 100 and something fry too. I feel like my average is about 20 to 50 at a time.
And see, to me, that's still a bunch. 20
to 50, a lot.
Still, I mean, most people don't go to the store and you don't buy 20 to 50 guppies at once. So when that one female has 20 to 50 guppies, that's you are astronomically increasing the amount of fish you have. And then we'll say, okay, they have 50 and you get 25 to survive and grow up.
Yeah, you don't.
That's still 25 guppies you didn't have.
Yeah, ideally you want them all to survive.
Well, yes. But that's not Mother Nature.
Yeah, naturally you're probably just going to lose a few just in the growing up, getting them to maturity stage. But after that, I feel like that third stage really is they just look, that gravid spot again is darkened and enlarged, and they're just going to look like they are swollen. Sometimes you don't know if maybe they're pregnant, maybe they have a tapeworm. You don't really know because are a parasite or something, because they're just really bloated. But that last stage that I look for when let's say, like I have plans to line breed her babies, I want to, when they're coming, put them in a grow out tank all by themselves. What stage I look for? They go from bloated to looking boxy, and they still have that bloated look, but the bloating, they look really, I hate to say boxy, but they look almost squared off. Like they start to go from rounded to their corners are kind of sharp. They look so bloated that they look like they're gonna
pop.
They're gonna pop, and and you'll know it when you see it. It's hard to describe in words for me. It's very difficult, but they go from a rounded, bloated look to a really bloated, squared, not so rounded, more sharp, bloated, if that makes sense. And when you see it, when you have a female guppy getting larger and larger and larger, when they go from that rounded to that sharp, bloated look, is when I move them, and just it's the weight game at that point. But when you start to see that happen is when that's what I look for to move them, and just wait for her to drop her fry. It's usually at nighttime when all the lights are off. That's usually when I wake up in the morning and turn the lights on. You see a bunch of babies swimming around somewhere, and they're usually kind of clustered together somewhere. So that's what I look for.
Well, that is all very, very helpful information.
Yeah. And then I'll usually feed them some fry food when I see them. And because there's been one time keeping guppies that I've caught it in the, like, I got to see her drop fry, but usually it's in the nighttime, and I'll just feed them when I see them some fry food.
Well, which goes back to what you said earlier. You keep them in a very stress-free environment most of the time. So even the less stress, then the only stress they have is the light.
Yeah.
So when the light is off, the male can't chase them.
Yeah, and stress from tank mate. I mean, stress can come from all different. They can feel stress from the pH, from the temperature. I'm gonna cough again. Sorry, I'm just getting over a cold. But they can feel, your fish can feel stress from all different types of things. But yes, generally in my mind, they only feel stress from the light cycle. When I first flip it on, it's like, the light came on. And I'm sure there's cases in the fish room I don't see of every once in a while you'll get a guppy chasing a baby or something, a parent, but I don't have super aggressive guppies. And when I feed them a little bit of food a couple of times a day, in my mind, they're not hungry, so they don't need to eat their babies. So I don't overfeed them. I do my best now not to overfeed them. I feed them even the fry just a little bit, just a tiny pinch more often through the day, at least twice. But I feed them more, so in my mind, they don't eat their babies. They just don't eat their babies. But I'm not going to say I have had, like, there's like, it seems like every so often you get that one that's just overly aggressive. And aggressive, I mean like nippy. They're not eating fry constantly, like just they're a random male.
They're not the jaws of the guppy world.
They'll chase them. It's more of like they're chasey but I don't. That's rare. Have I had it? Yes, but it's very rare. It's like one or two ever here and there in the past. It's not something
I consider it more aggressive is the way I look at it. It's more aggressive. I'm not going to say
I don't lose fried appearance, because I'm sure I do and I don't see it. But generally in my mind, if I have well-fed guppies, they're not eating their offspring.
Yeah, they're not predating on their offspring because they're hungry. Then that's their only option.
There are, and I can't say I know it personally. I've heard it through talk, but there are, it seems like, certain lines that guppies don't give parental care by any means, but there's some lines that might be a little bit more nippy towards their fry, but I don't know it to be personally true. It's not something, but I don't know if like this red mosaic Dumbo ear blah 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 guppy's you're gonna lose more fry to that line than this line. But it's something that I've heard through the grapevine, certain lines, but all you can do is just notice it. And if I do personally see that, like I think I've only seen like 2 males ever that are been like that, but when I do, I just put him in a different tank.
Yeah, he gets relocated.
But I don't know how to relay that in a more eloquent, because that was not easy to listen to. There's some lines. You can't just say all guppies are peaceful. Typically, all guppies are peaceful. Typically, guppies don't eat a lot of their fry, but you do see it from time to time, I guess.
Well, in every different species of fish we have here in the fish room right now, every one of them has a different personality. You're going to have more aggressive fish, even in a peaceful fish, than what
you just
quote unquote it says at the store, peaceful community. Well, it's still peaceful, but it's not as peaceful for that particular type of fish.
Well, even in saying like guppies are known to be prolific fish. They're known as a million fish because they have a million babies. But there has been a line in the past that no matter how hard I tried, they just seemed sterile. They just would not reproduce. And no matter what I tried, they just... So they're even saying that, like, typically guppies reproduce. Typically, they're very peaceful. They're easy to breed. They're easy to raise guppy fry up to adults. But you do have those rare occasions why you might get a female that just won't have guppies or offspring, or you might get that rare sneaker male that you thought was a female forever. And it's like, nope, it's rare that happens, but I've seen it, so.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So kind of wrapping it all together for us, it works well. We really enjoy the 20s, 20 long, 74 to 78. Our pH is always where it is. It's normal.
It's neutral. It's pretty neutral.
Yeah. We stay around a 7.2, I think. Is pretty much where we're at with that.
Yeah, they're just guppies. I just recommend you, if you haven't bred them, I recommend you try it. It's not difficult. They're really easy to breed, and it's really fun to see them mature and color up and see all the different combinations that you can get, because there's all different. If you can think it, there's a guppy out there that looks like it. And they're really fun, and they do well in a lot of different combinations, and they do well with a lot of different peaceful fish. So if you want to breed fish, give guppies a shot. And I hope that somewhere along this episode, you learn some helpful tips when it comes to breeding guppies. And even if you have a community tank and you don't really have like a goal to breed, but if it happens, it happens, you're probably going to have at least a handful new guppy fry just grow up, because even with tank mates, they're just not as hard as other fish, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Just hopefully you learn something new. If you made it this far, hopefully.
Well, this episode, we gave you a lot of do's. The don'ts, you will figure out on your own. Because the don'ts, when it comes to raising guppies, that is on your own learning basis, basically.
There's more do's than don'ts when it comes to guppy fry, and it's not hard. And I guess talking about it in my head, it makes it feel like it's overly complicated when it's not. But there are a few tips that I've learned through the years that hopefully in some aspect I relayed them in some form to you in this episode. So hopefully you enjoyed this. You can share this with a friend and go breed some guppies.
Yes. And until next time, thank you for tuning in.
Yes, thank you for listening. And if you're interested in checking out this episode, if you want to watch it, go over to memberships on ScienceGal Aquatics on the YouTube page and sign up for 99 cents. You can watch it and you can check out the tanks in the background. And if not, thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. And you can also go, if you really want to go a deep dive down the guppy wormhole, check out the website. And there's tons of pictures all about the boxy look that she was talking about.
Yeah, I have some pictures on there that it's easier to see it.
And you can check out all the pictures of everything we were talking about, the boxy look, say the word, it tongue tied me. Gonopodium. Thank you.
Yeah, I have some pictures on males and females.
And a deep dive into what you're actually looking at that we were talking about earlier, and really helpful information there at ScienceGalAquatics.com.
Yeah. But until next time, just thank you. Thank you for listening this far. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.